welcome to part 4 of Lovely's Introductory Guide for Young and New Metalheads. In my last videos, I discussed recommendations, personal recommendations for people just starting out getting into heavy metal, some starting points across the heavy metal spectrum. Now in this video, I'm going to discuss where to specifically get news about what's going on in the world of hard rock and heavy metal. There will be two sort of sections in this video where I'll discuss different sources, one about internet sources and one about print sources. So let's get started. I want to preface this video by saying I'm not being paid by any of these outlets to plug them, to give good reviews on them or anything. I don't think they even know I exist right now, as much as I would like to work for one or many of these outlets. I personally think that these are some really good places to get your hard rock and heavy metal news.
We're going to start off on the digital side of things. So the first website I'm going to talk about is Blabbermouth.net. This is a hard rock and heavy metal news site that, I say hard rock and heavy metal, but they cover rock and metal across just all spectrums. They don't shy away from one subgenre. And just kind of think of them like the New York Times of hard rock and heavy metal news. They're really straightforward, and even in their design, they don't try to do more than what they have to. If something happens in the world of hard rock and heavy metal, 5 seconds later, Blabbermouth is going to release a story on it, and boom, there's the headline on your Twitter feed. The one qualm I do have with Blabbermouth.net is, even though that they're very not driven by ethos or emotion or opinion, they will cling to certain topics if they're popular enough or world-shaking enough. And, for example, when Gene Simmons said that rock is dead, for weeks and weeks and weeks on end after that, they had headlines filled with other musicians' opinions on whether or not they agreed with Gene Simmons on that statement. And, oh my gosh, I'm not even exaggerating when I say weeks and weeks and weeks after that. But nonetheless, I still recommend Blabbermouth.net as a credible, very reliable hard rock and heavy metal news source. The next website I'm going to talk about is Loudwire.com. Like Blabbermouth.net, they're very straightforward and not very driven by ethos or opinion in their writing. However, they do have a lot of fun along the way. One thing I really like is how they have their rock and metal news sections just sectioned off differently. So if you want metal, you'll just get the metal news in that tab. If you just want rock, you'll get rock in that tab. One thing I don't like about Loudwire, though, is just the sheer amount of listicles they'll have, and it just makes it feel like BuzzFeed and not real journalism. I'm not into that sort of thing, and I don't really care about the top 25 whatevers have you, because, time is meaningless, and, new things will pop up all the time, so having a top 25 of all time of whatever is meaningless to me. I don't care. If you like that, though, they have that whole section just for you to look at. But yeah, Loudwire is still a very good, very credible source. I'm going to preface this by saying, for the next two websites I'm going to talk about, if you're not into emotionally driven, non-cut and dry opinion, bias sort of journalism, then these next two websites aren't for you. But I really enjoy them, so I thought I would include them in this video. So the next one is metalinjection.net. It's very clean cut and very interesting in their graphic design, which is something I think is very important, as should be important to anybody, really. They have their things sectioned off again. Their news is labeled by different categories, like you'll see it pop up in a second with the different lists, which is generally what happened in the last week of hard rock and heavy metal news, and funny stuff, all that fun stuff. Like I said, they're very opinionated, biased, and all that stuff, but I really don't care about that, just because I find myself agreeing a lot of the time with Metal Injection on what they have to say. They also have their Metal Injection Livecast, which is every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you can't listen to it live, you can download the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. I think there's a few other outlets, and no, I'm not being paid to say that. You can also call in or leave a voice message for this livecast. I'll leave all that information in the description box down below so you can get a look at it. It's very entertaining to listen to live, so if you ever have a chance to, I recommend you do that. And it's just, if you enjoy podcasts in general, that's something I really recommend. So, metalinjection.net. The last website I'm going to talk about is metalsucks.net, and yes, Metalsucks is an ironic satirical name, just so you know. I really like this one, like Metal Injection. It's more flavorful and personality filled in their news reporting. They have a really great layout again in their on their website, which is something that's very important to me, like I said before. They have things sectioned off, once again, kind of like Metal Injection, and with all the websites I discussed, they have their social media like at the top somewhere, so it's like really easy to follow. They also have each of their news stories categorized by like whatever, tour de force, and fuck you too, and that sort of thing. They also have a different take on how they report things, and they lean more towards an obscure kind of method, I think, and towards more obscure metal in general. Like, they'll take a story that, like, Blabbermouth will normally say something like, oh, this band released a new song today, give it a listen, here's a link. And Metal Sucks will take it and say, like, oh, this band released a new song. I mean, whatever, if you're into that. I mean, bye. So, yeah, that's metalsucks.net. And like I mentioned with Metal Injection, they're very opinion-based, but I find myself agreeing a lot with it, so it's something I don't have a problem with, and therefore really enjoy.
Now we're going to talk about the print sources. Now I have with me 3 magazines, and I'm going to discuss each of them. First up, we're going to talk about Revolver Magazine. Now, of all the magazines I'm talking about in this video, this one is the most affordable at $5.99 per issue. It sometimes has goodies that come with it, like posters, but you can't really count on that happening. It still has some really good articles, however, there's really not a lot of content to look at because it's $5.99 an issue. But on the plus side, this is a US-based magazine and the publication to bring about the first hard rock and heavy metal award show, the Revolver Golden Gods Award. It's kind of pretty straightforward, got articles about whatever is happening in hard rock and heavy metal. They've got some good layouts in here. Also, towards the end, there's reviews, maybe a quote or two from whomever. It's really good. So, yeah, that's Revolver Magazine. The next one I'm going to talk about is Rock Sound Magazine. This is the next most affordable one at $8.99 in the US. It's a UK-based publication, but you can get it pretty much wherever. But yeah, so this is Rock Sound Magazine. This was like my first real love when it came to the hard rock and heavy metal publications. So you get a little more content in here. There's some really good features like an advice column from whoever is giving advice in that issue. Andrew WK was giving advice in this issue. You got just like fan feedback and all that stuff. You also have the feature. The feature was Lamb of God. Also have some really good layouts and really good articles. Towards the end, they have reviews of different genres, which is really freaking cool. And always at the end, there's kind of like a last word section with whomever. So that's real fun. Rock Sound Magazine. I highly, 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 highly recommend Rock Sound Magazine. Last magazine we're going to talk about is Metal Hammer Magazine. This is also a UK-based publication, talking more centered around heavy metal. The other 2 publications I talked about, they bring in more different genres of rock music. Now, Metal Hammer runs at $11.99 per issue, but you're guaranteed goodies in each issue. This one came with a double-sided poster of Baby Metal and Judas Priest, and that's hanging on my wall. I've got the Baby Metal side showing. Now, Metal Hammer is a really good publication too. You get a lot more bang for your buck than you get with the other 2 publications. It has some really great graphics. Something I always appreciate is good graphic design in a magazine. You can see this spread with Rob Halford of Judas Priest. What I also like about Metal Hammer magazine is that they post the overseas UK version of the Golden Gods Awards, where, you know, Revolver started it over here in America. The Metal Hammer magazine brought it over to the UK. So, Metal Hammer magazine, another worthy publication to look into. So that wraps up part 4 of Lovely's Introductory Guide for Young and New Metalheads. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please share this video with your friends, family, potential employers, Loudwire. In my next video, I'm going to be discussing hard rock and heavy metal media outside of music, stuff like movies, mainly, and TV shows. So stay tuned for that. Until my next video, guys, you stay brutal.